All right, everybody. It's Tuesday and it's September. Who thought the year would be like almost over by now? It's MSP initiative time, and this time we are off the road. No more RV touring, but we are definitely going to be recapping that today. We have my like second favorite guest, other than myself. Just kidding. No, Ken Patterson's on with us again. Big Ken. Today we have our special guest, Taylor Thorson, without an N. I didn't spell it wrong this time. From Connectbooster. How's everyone doing today?
Good. I thought you were going to say I was your favorite, so.
Well, I said second favorite, but, Ken's got to take the top spot somewhere, right?
That's right. Somewhere. Got to have some spot. Right. Exactly. Thanks, George. Thanks, George, for sending a little love.
Hey, listen, love comes in multiple ways, Anyway, so we're basically taking one episode a week to kind of recap from our 3-week, extravaganza, gallivanting across the United States of America. And would love to, just kind of zoom out for a second, really, give me a sentence on your experience overall, right? Like recapping 30,000 foot overview. Give me a sentence, Taylor, on what you felt about our trip.
I mean, besides that, it was a blast. But
that's always good.
I mean, that's a sentence for you, but
there you go.
Yeah,
I'll take that if that's where you want to stop. No, all good. I mean, Ken, we I feel like every day we keep on going back and forth with different people we found, met it along the way, and different people that, parking lot to parking lot, city to city, I'm still getting messages back from people pretty much daily. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate you guys for, getting on the road when nobody else was. And listen, we didn't know what it was going to be. I remember in the early days planning this with you, we were really scratching our heads wondering if it was going to happen, right?
Well, I mean, look, I'm going to probably say this in every single episode we do, right? We had Scott last week. We got Taylor today. We'll have the rest of the crew once a week, like you said. I'm going to say the same exact thing. There was no doubt that it was happening because it was you and it was me. Two guys who have that East Coast, Northeast mentality like, oh, wait, did we say we're going to do something? We're going to follow through. So, yeah, there's no question of if we were going to do it. It was when. And the fact that we pulled it off when we did, when everybody else was saying, oh, that doesn't look too good. That's a bad idea. All we were focused on was the partners. And then when we started thinking about, well, okay, we're going to go out and do some good. Let's spread that. Let's talk about food vendors and the drinks and all the things we have to buy in between. And then let's expand that out a little further and talk about food banks and how we're going to deliver some good that way too. So it wasn't even about us. It wasn't about our companies or optics or anything. We knew we could do some good. I think that's what drove us to kind of go all the way.
100%. Taylor, I'll throw you a few softballs. Where are you based out of?
Fargo, North Dakota.
All right. And apparently there's more than corn in Fargo, right?
Yeah, there really is. Yeah, it's hard to believe, but.
All right. Well, I mean, you're the one there. I'm just asking.
You'll for yourself, yeah.
Okay. All right. So what was your favorite food truck food experience? I know we had a couple of them catered. Out of all the 15 stops, do you have anyone that comes to mind as your favorite?
Yeah, I think the Memphis, 9 to 1, that was my favorite. Can't go wrong with a good pizza.
Let's say it the way that she first said it. 9 go, and then she had to start over again on the video. Great class. I was just watching those and I was like cracking up because we all had that crazy moment. But 9 do, that was perfect. I don't think we should have retook that one, George. I think we should release that one. It was pretty funny.
Sure, I'm happy to release as is. Works for me.
I think we're going to pass on that one. Thanks, though.
Oh.
I like how she's getting bossy now, telling us what to do.
Now that she's been through 7,000 miles, it's different, right?
Yeah, 3 weeks with you guys changes a person, so.
Oh, hopefully for the better. So think back across the trip. Was there any one conversation that comes to mind that you had with some of the MSPs that we met, or what was any one takeaway that you thought was something unexpected for you?
I mean, I think in general, since this was kind of a first time event for me, learning from you guys in general on a day-to-day basis was something that, like you guys said, this was like a crash course for me. Really just thrown into something, and each day was something new. And so I feel like not something off the top of my head, but every single day I mean, I feel like I came back and I knew, or at least have more knowledge on the channel in general. So
No, I appreciate that. For everyone who's watching, Taylor was only literally on the job for a few weeks until she decided to jump in an RV with us. So totally understand the crash course. You know, Ken, thinking back to the trip, was there any one city that, you know, you felt was surprising to you in terms of what was happening, or, you know, did everything kind of end up the way that you thought it was going to be?
Oh yeah, everything was perfectly planned. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. No. I wouldn't say any one city. I would say the general theme, and we'll probably talk about this ad nauseum, but the general theme is how open places were in contrast to, what we heard or what we thought. I feel like there was a lot more open places than we thought. I mean, the night that we had dinner at the restaurant where it was completely empty and we were sitting in a booth with an open wall and we're thinking, this is how it should be. And then we're watching college students go upstairs to an absolute rager. Like, to me, that's a flip of, obviously that's not how we wanted to do things. I definitely wasn't going upstairs all the way down to Taylor. Didn't feel like she was going to go upstairs, right? So it didn't have anything to do with, the fact that they were college students. It was just, wow, that's crazy. But everything was open from that standpoint. We were doing it the right way. And I think that the point of all this is you can be out, you can get out and do things. You don't have to shut things completely down to get out there and be normal. It's not extremes. You don't have to completely lock up, and you definitely don't have to go to a rager, but you can do it in the middle and have masks on and do it in the proper way so that you're still seeing people, you're still seeing people's faces, and it's not a shocker because we're staring at these screens all the time.
Yeah, no, I definitely had I was starting to see green everywhere, right? With all those green screens out there. Taylor, any idea how much hand sanitizer we went through?
Can we even count that?
I don't know. I know we started with gallons, right?
Yeah, we had a lot. I think, did you guys even have any left over? No?
I think I may have one left, actually. I still got to go through all the stuff, though.
Taylor, just remember, every time we got on the bus, we don't really want George to pour the hand sanitizer because we're basically bathing in it, right? He was like, oh, no, you guys.
No, we're like.
I'm like trying to find places to put it because it was so much. So, yeah,
listen, there's never enough hand sanitizer. I mean,
clearly.
Current circumstances.
Clearly.
The only problem is my immunity system is now down.
Well, I mean,
because I have that barrier on all the time.
You're back in the basement now. You're good.
Oh, it's building back up. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Just building that Boston immunity back up. Taylor, was there any particular, we had a lot of downtime in the bus as we were going city to city, and we listened to a lot of music and watched a lot of movies. Was there any particular one that comes to mind?
Okay, well, you guys made me watch The Boiler Room. That was good.
Made you. Were you appreciative after you saw it?
It was educational, right? You guys made me listen to a lot of different music, like Linkin Park, a lot of kind of weird stuff.
What's wrong with Linkin Park?
It is what it is. I got an education on movies and music. Gosh, what was the one movie with Denzel? That was probably my favorite movie.
Training Day?
Yeah,
Training Day.
That was the best one.
We were in the middle of training people, right? Might as well use Training Day.
Yep.
Well, let's face it. She said nobody could have that bad a first day, and then she comes on a tour with us. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Her first day was 3 weeks long.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Training Day was like 1 day, right? And
right.
Yeah.
This was a little bit longer. Brent asked, "How much food did we go through?" Well, Brent, there are 2 types of foods, right? Or 3 types. There's, hey, you show up to the parking lot and we had the food trucks and we had, some of the stuff catered depending on where we were. We also had, the food that was delivered, right, as part of people coming for the food banks. And then, of course, there was the snacks and stops that we made along the way. Here we go. How much did we collect? Well, I know for sure we were over a pallet, Brent. When you actually aggregate it all together. I did not count exactly how many cans.
Actually, George, it was probably more than a couple of pallets because in one place we got a whole pallet just from one company.
Oh, okay.
Think about that, right? They were donating a pallet and delivering it themselves. So we did have a couple of those. So I would say we were easily over a couple of pallets of food.
Yeah, I mean it seems like the food banks in all the areas were definitely appreciative. We had some, we were cut short on a couple of, kind of exits because of the amount of travel time between cities on the road. So I know a lot of the MSPs that were hosting us, did deliveries, in each city on their own, when we couldn't do it. But I would say on average, we didn't have less than 20 cans or so per, because everybody brought a couple, right? So,
And we
yeah.
got cash too, George. There was the flip side of that. Like Chris Leffingwell came from Oklahoma was like, I never had a chance to stop because I was driving straight through to get here to the event, and he pulled out $40 and put it towards the cause. And JP went out and got a whole bunch of canned goods and gave it to the food bank. So
That's
we
awesome.
got quite a bit of like little odds and ends as we were collecting and going through that stuff. So yeah, it was really cool. And we even got dog food. Who knew that food banks could have animals, right? There's animals. So we got a case of dog food in Denver.
That was cool. Brent says he works with a homeless org, so appreciate the heads up there, Brent, and we're happy to help the cause. I mean, a little bit of goodwill goes a long way, and you don't know what everybody's situation is in every city for sure. Taylor, did you get, was anything surprising to you on the trip? We know we learned a lot, crash course, all that jazz. Was there anything that you thought was unexpected to you after the 3-week trip?
I mean, I think it was a little crazy to see how open everything was. We talked about this a lot, just how everywhere we went, things were open. I think I was expecting things to be more shut down than they were. So it was good to see, though, for sure.
Absolutely. Ken, did you have anything to say about parking at Chick-fil-A's?
You mean parking in general? I mean, okay. Listen, we didn't go into this lightly. George and I, George especially, thinks big. He's not a small thinking kind of guy. And so, when we were doing this, I kind of took the George mentality and said, we're not driving. There's no way we're driving. If we're going to get a big thing, we need to get a driver. So our driver had 10 years of experience driving Bruce Springsteen in the band and had 10 years experience with Jimmy Buffett, and then some others that these guys never heard of, like Michael McDonald and some pretty old school bands, from the Doobie Brothers. And it was just crazy. And then to watch him park a truck or come around, I mean, George will tell you, Taylor will tell you, he come around a building, I'm like, there's no effing, whoa. And he would just get into these spots that were completely amazing. So yeah, it was pretty interesting to watch someone who do that. I think when I'm driving my car and I get in a spot pretty tight, I'm like, I'm the man. But now it's like completely and utterly put to shame by Slade. The guy just got us into some great spots, and that was George's first unfortunate bad experience with Chick-fil-A. One employee out of however many, but it got made up at the next stop, right? They moved the whole entire driveway for us to get us out. But your first bad experience, I'm sorry, George.
Well, I mean, listen, I know you're an airline points guy. I know Taylor's like, I can't wait to be a Hilton, like gold platinum person. I'm the Chick-fil-A, like super uber platinum guy, right? I mean, that's my point system. That and Chipotle, right? So, but Chipotle, you just get to the free meal. Like Chick-fil-A, you can actually like go up in the world. But it's the first time I submitted a complaint via the app, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We had to work through the tears. Taylor had tissues for him and everything. It was rough.
Yeah. It was unbelievable. By the way, Brent, no compensating here, buddy. Trust me. Everything's just crazy because that's how I like to do things. But maybe it's a Philly thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a bald head guy thing. I can't tell you. That's just how it works out.
Bald head guy thing.
That's what I think. I don't know. Man, there's every time I run into somebody bald, they're a little bit crazy too. I don't know. This comes from me. I used to have an afro, right? No, Brent, but you can keep on guessing. Taylor, did so you came, you've been with Connectbooster now for over a month, right? With the 3-week trip. When you were first interviewing for your job, what made you want to come into the IT business, the IT industry, software, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, it's something absolutely different than I was ever expecting, but how much it's changing, how much it's evolving. I think that was something that was really cool about it. It's changing. There's just so much to do here. And I didn't even realize it till I got into the job, all the things that came with it too. So it's super exciting. It's new. And yeah, I'm over a month now. So that's good.
Okay. All right. Yeah. What did you go to school? All right. I got you. You're going to get a badge. What did you major for in school out of curiosity?
Business admin and marketing. So,
Okay.
you know,
Business, admin, and marketing. And we
There's
went
alignment.
into
There's alignment there.
there is.
yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Ken, if you were to give advice based on all the conversations you had across the trip, what's the first thing that comes to mind if an MSP says, what's going on today and what should I be worried about?
Oh, Georgie, you ask the best questions. Seriously, it's like being on those shows where they make you cry because they peel the layers back a little bit. Look, the main thing that was consistent is cloud is the place to be. And before this, it was hard. Now it's much easier. And so, all the little guys out there, I've already said this and I'll continue to say this. Now's the time. It's wide open. Don't feel like you're left behind. It's easy to jump in and do this. You have a lot of help. For the bigger guys, I mean, all they've said all along is we were kind of already there. We've been pushing for it. We have most of our customers moving into the cloud. So the shift wasn't that rough other than taking people off their enterprise firewalls and putting them on Netgears at home and, all the issues that go along with firewalls that, had 10 licenses and now they need 40 and they have to bump their VPN licenses up to get people to work from home, all crazy stuff like that. But the overall theme is it's good. And you hate to say something's good about a pandemic, but let's just call it what it is, a disruption. It's a disruption. Line it up to all the other disruptions that are happened to all the industries. And the one thing that remains the same is your ability to pivot. If you can't pivot, you won't survive. If you do, you will. So the main thing here is don't give up, push through it, and you'll be fine. There's a lot of opportunity in cloud now. We got the right people listening. We've talked about this a bunch of times. C-level people are paying attention to MSPs because their people didn't do the job when it hit the fan. So I say reach out to the appropriate people. Reach out to other MSPs that are successful. They're all out there offering help. Take it. Don't just sit back and say, oh, I can't do it. These guys are better. They're only better because they listen to someone else. So make sure you guys are paying attention and get involved and put your head down and do it. There's a lot of opportunity in cloud security, and this just made it a heck of a lot faster. Probably the fastest acceleration in any business.
100%. Taylor, one of the things that I took away personally was that sometimes, listen, you may have not, I know you've only been to like one or two events before the bus and in general, but one of the things that we usually see at conferences, when COVID's not around, is sometimes some people are willing to share more than others. Some people are willing to, maybe it takes a beer or two to kind of loosen up a little bit. But on this tour, I felt like everybody was open. Everybody was asking questions. Everybody was trying to figure out what was going on. I found more people, like nobody was just standing around just by themselves in the corner on this one. Did you feel that way too?
No, not at all. I think people wanted that community. They wanted to talk. They wanted to see what other people were doing and kind of collaborate. And like Ken said, you can learn from everyone around you. So at times like this, that's kind of what you have to do in order to pivot and figure out how we're going to make things work in weird times like now. 100%. On our end, that was cool to listen to everyone on the bus though, because everyone's doing different things. So that was also interesting on my end to hear what you guys are doing, how you've changed, your companies have evolved, things like that. So.
Hey George, I didn't even see the Q&A because I was on chat, not Q&A. So I'm like, who's George talking to? So yes, Brent asked Brent's asking a lot of questions, and I love that. Yeah. So, Brent, I would say, there is a lot of unknown for sure. Cloudflare, but that's why, just like when we were all working from home, you have to have backups. You have to have other ways to get to your data. So that's a great question, and obviously a much longer question. If you want to talk about that offline at some point, we can always do that. But a lot of ways to get back up to that, those types of issues.
So Ken, we and Taylor, we had Matt Lee on the bus with us from Iconic for a good part of the trip until he got off and kind of had a little vacation there. Matt Lee's a really smart guy. He's super deep, right? And one of the two or three things that absolutely came out of his mouth reoccurring on every Zoom that I felt like he was on was identity is the new firewall. I swear I have that burned into the back of my head. So I don't like, and I actually had to step back and say, okay, well, I guess I kind of understand what he's saying, right? Like single sign on, your account, you being out there, right? Like that is the new, authentication mechanism. It's not the corporate firewall or whatever it is. Ken, I mean, I feel like that's something that is, and Brent's already asking, what's the definition of identity? I feel like that whole concept is very foreign to a lot of the guys that we run into on a daily basis.
Yeah, I agree. It's securing the endpoint now, not the office, not the computer. It's the person, right? The identity is the person. You're securing George Bardissi, not securing his computer, his phone. We're securing George Bardissi. So George logs in from China. We know he's not supposed to log in from China, and we shut that down. George logs in from California, and we know that he's supposed to be there. That's the first step. But George goes to log into something that's not his. It gets shut down. So it's all about those levers that have been put in place to secure George Bardissi, not his laptop, not his phone, not his this. It's all about securing the identity, the person. Now we have the tools in place to have rules set up for what George is supposed to do, what George is not supposed to do. And then if he gets into what he's supposed to do and does something wrong, well, we got to come up with new things. But those are the main pieces. Identity is, who is George? What does he have access to? And if he does, how do we shut that thing down? The whole entire thing locks down to the person as opposed to the phone, the laptop, and all of that.
And there's a lot of ways to get there, right? I know
Right.
Microsoft's kind of made SSO available to everyone at no cost now, single sign-on. I know there's a lot of other, players in the market, right? Whether it's Duo in the MSP space or Okta was pretty early out there. But basically the idea is that your Active Directory domain, your Office 365 account, your, Gmail account, your iPhone, iCloud sign in, right? Like we've all been on islands, right? And now it's trying to reel all of that together to identify the actual individual, not just islanded accounts, so it was a really interesting conversation with Matt. And frankly, I think over the next 24 months, that's going to be the focal point. I really feel like everything's going that direction. One of the things that Matt said that was part of their criteria when they're selecting a vendor is that if they don't handle SSO, if they don't handle OpenID, right, the ability to tie into the single sign-on, architecture, they may not select that vendor. So,
Right. And also MFA, like there's so many things that break down into how he's doing that, and it's about those layers. Right,
Brent,
you got to have those layers.
We watched Minority Report on the bus. It's coming. I feel like the eye retina scanner as you're walking down the street is going to be for real.
Right. I'm going to do a George thing though. George quotes. What was the bigger word that we heard from Matt Lee? And I'll bet 100% Taylor will recognize it. Paradigm shift. Right. Mm-hmm. Everything's about that shift, that paradigm shift. Matt always starts with that, and then he starts getting crazy where I'm sure at one point Taylor's like, okay, I have no clue what he's talking about. Because me too. Sometimes he just gets off on these tangents, but it's because of that analytical, smart, he knows how to break that stuff down. And Brent, I would recommend talking to Matt Lee. The guy's wide open to talking about security and where it's headed. His whole thing is about being that evangelist for security, and helping out MSPs. So yeah, the paradigm shift one probably would be, if I was going to bet money on one phrase being said, that would be the one I'd win the money on. Paradigm shift is going to be the start of all of it.
100%. So here's a good one for you, Taylor, that fits right into the mix. So, we've been talking about work from anywhere for like 5 months, right? You lived it for 3 weeks. How much work did you really get done?
Ouch.
Yeah, it's like, do you want me to be honest here,
Listen, put up whatever you want. I asked the question.
Hey,
well, how about you change it for?
We did get work done. Just hard when we're in like a small area and there's about 10 of us and everyone's talking.
Yeah, I get that.
We might have got like a little bus sick too, but we were able to work. We can work.
I'm a motion sickness guy, right? If I'm looking down too much and I'm driving, or in a car that's driving, not doing that at the same time. Yeah, no, that's good.
I was going to say, George looking down while driving. This is why he didn't drive the bus.
Right. No, that's why we said nobody's supposed to be driving the bus. Right?
George, to your original point, probably shouldn't have phrased it as how much work you got, because immediately she's like, "What do you mean?" I think that it was about, could you work? We're talking about working from anywhere. Literally, we could have worked from any place that we were, other than when you're typing and you're doing this in the back of a bus. It's a little bit harder. But I would say that, to your point, we were joking about it. We're like, this is the modern workplace. Right. The modern workplace is right here. We're in a bus. We didn't have 10 people either, Taylor. Jeez.
Felt like it. At one point we had like 8.
So if the bus is moving along state to state, city to city, all kinds of places, yeah, we had some issues with if everybody was on and like we were trying to do the video, the call, we had some issues with that. But overall, being able to connect, get stuff done, play music, whatever it was, connecting to the internet and doing our thing worked pretty damn well, better than you would think. So yeah, you could work from just about anywhere. And you did this all with hotspots.
Sure.
Yeah, we had the 3 hotspots, right? Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and we burned through data on all of them and recharged them a couple of times. But I was surprised that on the highway, which we spent a lot of our time, T-Mobile was solid. I was really shocked.
I gotta admit it. Yeah, and my phone actually, when I didn't do a whole lot of the hotspot stuff. I'll admit I did a lot from my phone, but my phone, literally without being connected to anything, was pretty active through a lot of the. I did my email. I did our the stuff we do on Slack. Like everything was right there through my phone was still connected and working. And then of course the bigger stuff when I'm typing emails that need a little more attention than me pressing with my fat thumbs. I feel like everything was doable from there. I mean, we'll talk to Amy at some point. I mean, she sat at that little desk and was going at her business like crazy. So that's a good indication that things were working pretty well.
Well, Brent, 100% face-to-face is invaluable. I think we had more conversations on the bus about future endeavors and ways that we're helping collaborate than I think I probably ever had. Which is nice, right? Because you're number one, you got to do it, right? Unless you just got to call it a day and snooze off. But it was just good, right? It was good, healthy conversation. Not just in the parking lot, but definitely on the bus. I see our friend Eric Pinto jumps in here. He says, "Work from anywhere. The tools are there, but does productivity take a hit without the normalcy of sitting at a normal office?"
Depends on the situation. I think it depends on the situation. I think that human interaction, we all agree, is super important. There's just something to be said about your mental health not being around humans in person. That's just straight up for number one. So, your tech teams, I think those guys are missing being in the office with other techs where they can interact. Yes, you can do a lot with teams, you can do a lot, but it's not the same as hearing somebody in the next cubicle talking about something and then being able to say, oh, I've seen that before, and they can interact a heck of a lot better. So I do believe engineers, but I do also believe that there's a lot that can be done remotely, like we all know. And Eric, too. It's spread out across the board, like being able to increase your sales team across the nation as opposed to just looking for people in your area. Because we got folks down in Louisiana, certain parts of Louisiana, that can't find help in these rural areas. That's harder to find people. So you have to be a little bit more flexible. And now it makes it that much easier to be able to do stuff like this. So I think it expands. I don't think everybody goes to work remotely. That's not going to happen. But I think a good amount of the people will split time. We'll spend a little bit more time at home. We'll spend some time at the office, and it'll be a mix. There'll still be a hybrid.
Well, one of the things I heard, and open thing to both of you, is I heard that a lot of the people that we met out in the parking lots weren't all like, a lot of them were back to the office, right? I mean,
true.
They did the hybrid thing for as long as they needed to, but in the parts of the country where it wasn't an issue, their people are back in the office. I heard that a lot. Do you hear differently?
I agree. That's what I was hearing.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, obviously we talked to Justin Dews down in Texas, and he said they're in the office, they're wearing masks in the public areas, but they go back to their offices and do their things. There's definitely a lot to be said from that. It's been a mix. Like I've heard people say some of the teams were more productive because they didn't have the drive-by, hey, George, what's going on today? And then you kind of go off kilter, right? There are some employees that just can't say, hey man, I'm busy. I got something going on. So in some cases it's made it more productive because they're able to work through, and other cases it's not so productive, like I talked about in the engineering department. So I think it's going to be a good mix, right? We got to figure out what works for what departments and how that will all plug in together. I'm still a in-person guy across the board. You know, I love what we do because I think we talk to each other more than we ever have because we're in different parts of the country. But if we were all in the same place, you'd be damn sure we would be getting together a lot and having conversations, because I just feel like there's so many in-person cues that you don't pick up on a Zoom call.
100%. Another one out to both of you. So, you know, did you think people were more willing to come out in the middle of the day, or was it better towards the end of the day? And like just trying to get your feel on that.
I'm sorry, what was it? The beginning?
Like,
I was trying to read the question.
Like people coming out, right? Yeah, to hit us up in these various cities in these parking lots. Do you feel like the remote working thing leads more to, hey, I can just kind of bounce out whenever, or do you still think that there's a structured business day?
I still think there's structure. I still think that they're thinking to themselves, what time of day is this? Oh crap, I got calls. Might be easier to say I'm not going to schedule a call at 4 than it is at even at 12. Even though they're taking lunch, because they got to take time to get to the event and then time to get back from the event, as opposed to at the end of the day when they can just say, I'm calling it a day at 4.
True. Taylor, when you're back in Fargo, I assume you're going to the office every day?
Sure am.
Okay. Well, there you go. Let's also think for a second about, hey, you know, the hotel experience, right? Everybody was kind of asking us these questions. I figure we just hit it on the head. You know, I would say for the most part, like we kept the Marriott, Hilton, right? I mean, those are the big two players. I would say most of that experience was pretty good, right? I mean, they had the room, they had the sticker on the door saying it had been cleaned, right? And, you know, they obviously had everything spread out. Did you have any concerns about the whole hotel experience while we were on the road?
I didn't. I don't know. Ken might have been different. You might have been different. I feel like they're more clean than usual now than before.
I would agree with that. They definitely worked harder. I mean, listen, even if it wasn't COVID, we would have different experiences at different hotels, right? The one common theme is they were cleaner. I mean, at one place, the phones were even wrapped in cellophane. A little bit of work if you wanted to use the phone, but who uses the phone in a hotel anyways, other than calling the front desk? So from that standpoint, I think that was the common theme. The amazing thing to me was, in some places, nobody was following any damn regulations as far as filling up the hotels. We saw some hotels that were like, holy moly, I'm not sure we want to go there and make an adjustment, right? And then we were in a place like Orlando where this big, giant, beautiful, clean hotel was at 6% capacity, 6. And the owner was paying all the employees that were still working out of his own pocket. So he was so happy to see us. And that's a hotel that's usually booming and doing so well. I mean, he was telling us about the events, the fire pits, the parties, all gone. And the employees that worked on certain floors, they had to let them go and only have employees per floor, where they skipped a floor and they couldn't even fill that up. So yeah, it's a different experience across the board. But seeing a big hotel like that at 6% was actually scary. And then you're thinking, well, it's probably some big name. No, it was some owner who owned it, and he let us know that he was in this owner's community, and they were all feeling the same thing down there in Orlando.
Yeah, for sure. We generally made it pretty well with weather, right? I mean, it was hot. Let's not slice that one. I mean, you know, 117 degrees or 100% humidity, right? Like Kansas City was like, I felt like I was in New Orleans walking out in the summertime. But we did run into a little bit of rain, right? We ran into a little bit of rain. We ran into, there was like an inland hurricane. I'd never heard that term before. Amy Luby shared with us when we stopped through Iowa. I didn't know that the biggest truck stop in the world was in Iowa, by the way. But I had no idea that there was some weather events along the trip. Anything that really blew you out of the wild with the, you know, just events that were happening in the wild, right? Weather-wise on the trip?
And Taylor, answer that. You can answer that one. I have a couple, but I'll let you answer that one.
Well, I think there was like a path of destruction left behind us. It seemed like we were kind of like wildfires. Yeah, the storm in Iowa. You guys hit rain in the middle of the desert. I mean,
yeah, that was
not
weird.
rain. A full-on storm in the middle of the desert. By the way, what was that, George? First time in 60 years a rainstorm like that came through the desert?
It was crazy, man. I was shocked. I like people were just taking video of the rain. You're like, I've seen rain before, but it was literally the middle of the desert.
Like almost flooded the RV because of the rain. You know.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Could you recreate that moment for us, Taylor? What was it that you were doing?
And then it didn't work.
Yeah, we had a waterfall in the bus, and Taylor was the one turning the switch and did a little dance in front of the waterfall. And then George got some too. Yeah, it was a lot of interesting stories. We'd have to do like full-blown, 2-hour events to talk about all the stories alone.
Yeah,
for sure. Was there any particular stop that you thought was crazy? I mean, we stopped at a lot of truck stops because, we needed to fill up gas and do the whole diesel thing. Anything shock you from a truck stop perspective?
We could go right back to where you started. I mean, Iowa, that truck stop was like Walmart at 1 a.m. times 1,000. I mean, the people watching, if I wasn't so worried about what I might contract being in that space, I would have stuck around and pulled up a chair and just people watched. We had the little Italian guy with the tank top and the Star Wars pajama pants walking around with his arms like this.
Christmas pajamas?
Yeah, Star Wars pajamas, right?
Christmas.
Yeah. That was the Christmas pajama. That was a girl, with Christmas pajamas and big fuzzy slippers standing in line at Subway or one of those places.
Taco Bell, yeah.
Yeah, and the place had, 6 different food places. They had a lawyer upstairs, a divorce lawyer, funny enough. They had taxidermy, I think. I mean, there was just all kinds of crazy stuff up there on the second floor that none of us dared to go up to that second floor. But, that would be probably the most, or maybe the chili place that in the middle of the desert of nowhere, we go to the chili place and they have a Patriots poncho. George really wanted to buy it, but.
Nope. Only if we were going to light it on fire.
Oh, that's not nice.
There was also a Green Bay poncho there. Let's be fair.
A Green Bay poncho. Right. In the middle of the desert, Texas, and there's not a single Texas thing to be found. Green Bay and the Patriots.
Yeah, for sure.
That was weird.
For a guy that sometimes gets pulled over, I was more worried about my first and second border patrol stop.
I would agree. You definitely looked afraid.
That's when you put the shade down.
It didn't make things any better when Slade the driver is pulled over saying, "Hey, do you guys want to help me give a guy in the back a little shit?" I'm like, "What? You didn't want to hear that. I know."
Nope, that wasn't.
Luckily for you, the Border Patrol is no joke. They were like, "Move on."
Sounds good to me. Temecula, right? I've never been there. I was thinking about my favorite kind of new things along the way, right? Like I'd never been to that part of California. And I guess to both of you, was there any area that you had never been to that you were really like, oh, I dig this? Or, I had never been to Kansas City. I'd never been to Temecula. I've really only passed through Raleigh. That was my first time stopping there. So there were a couple of new areas for us, right?
Well, back up. First of all, I know you didn't enjoy Kansas City. I'm pretty sure you burst into flames the minute you stepped out of the vehicle. So
it was stupid. It was like 120% humidity.
I'll tell you, I never thought Kansas City would be 100 degrees and 100% humidity. That would be the last place out of all the places we went. That was the hottest spot. Mm-hmm. Or the most humid, because it was 119 in Arizona, but it was a dry heat.
Yeah.
I was just a fan of the funnel cake truck. I mean, that made my Kansas City experience great.
Right, except it melted right in your hands. But
well, I mean, I got it. I got it down somehow.
So, what was your spot, Taylor? What was your spot? What was a spot? I mean, maybe you've not been to a lot of these places, but which spot were you like, I could stay here, or I like this place?
Well, the Denver was so cool, the Bronco Stadium. I think that was my favorite. Even though I'd been there before, it's so cool. Can't get over that one. I'm trying to think. Dallas was really fun. We had fun at Jerry's World. Just saying.
George left a little something behind.
Yeah.
Actually, so did I. I left my hamstring behind.
Well, the season is definitely upon us. I had to leave a little juju just to make sure that they had some bad,
I still think we should have got an overview of you doing the snow angel on the star. I think that would
I
have
definitely messed up that star. I don't know how that, I don't know if they have to repaint it or what, but I left some scuffs for sure.
I messed up that star too, but we won't talk about how I messed up that star.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you left a little air behind for Jerry. That was awful nice of you.
Yeah, listen, they had seams in the windows, good enough for me. Well, we also saw the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders locker room, remember?
Well, we also saw Taylor's cousin. We didn't know that he played for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, we figured that out.
We got the great photo of Taylor pointing up, and it was, do you remember his first name?
Is it Corey?
Corey Thorson?
I know this, it's my cousin.
That's right. That was a test right there. You failed.
Cedric Thorson. Oh, good. So let's zoom back for a second then. We heard a lot of people willing to work with each other, right, Ken? Like MSPs who are saying, hey, we've already done this. We can help you out. I mean, I'm always, in the back of my mind, I'm always like, man, this always used to be a real sour conversation, right? Nobody wanted to work with anyone else. I know there's a lot of help out there from a vendor standpoint, but I really am starting to see a lot of collaboration now between MSP to MSP, right? Like the castle mentality is starting to go away a little bit. Did you see that?
You love that castle mentality, right? It's just, this is mine. Get out of here. I don't want to share, right? And it's, I think it's been going away before this because that's what our community is. I think more and more people are learning that's the way to go, right? I mean, let's face it, the calls that I do on Tuesdays and Thursdays are directly related to that. Didn't want it to be about any vendor, didn't want it to be about just a group of our community getting together. And you just saw people pouring in, helping each other. And I think if more people get to that, those are the most successful people. I mean, I had my MSP, we grew my MSP. It didn't grow because me or my partners were any kind of geniuses. We talked to other people. We figured out what worked. We applied the things that they did that worked and adapted them to how we operate in Boston, right? And that's what made us grow. There is no silver bullet, but if you get out there and listen to people and apply what they're talking about to your business, you're going to be way more successful. Talk to any person, any MSP that's successful, they'll tell you the same. And one point that came out of all this, I was rewatching the videos, and I didn't catch this when I was doing the interview, but Brett Mesh, I said, hey, why did you come all the way from Louisiana out to Houston? And he didn't say, because I can. He said, I built my business off of these same events and relationships. Why would I miss out on an in-person event that was being done safely to make more relationships? And he said what he's learned is, yes, it's great to be home, and I'm still going to do events next year, but I think I'm going to be more careful about which ones I go to. To me, that was a pretty poignant statement. He knows that events are different. He wants to be safe, but he also knows he's been to a lot of events that didn't really give him what he needed other than the meeting of the other MSPs and some vendors that made sense for him and got, were a fit and got it. So I think it's been happening. I think COVID has again accelerated another area where people are like, we've never experienced this before. I need a little bit of help. And then they meet someone like Matt Lee who's willing to step in and tell them, look, this is how you should get started. This is what you should do. And vendors like everybody that was on this trip that were all offering advice without trying to sell. And I think that's very important for our community.
No sales pitch for sure. Taylor, if you were to give advice to somebody who's looking to get into this business, from everything you've learned so far, what would you tell them? Would you tell them run far, far away, do anything differently, or
stay far away from you guys? That's what I would say.
Nice. We've taught her well. She's giving us crap.
No, I mean, I would tell anyone to jump into this. I think it's such a cool time to be joining the channel right now as it's changing, to see the old and see the new. So I would tell anyone to check it out, I guess. That was a good question, George. You threw me off on that one.
I told you he's got good questions.
Yeah, you threw me off on that one a little bit.
So, would you tell them to make sure you bring your own personal hand sanitizer next time? Or
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if make sure to bring extra pillows. That much I can tell everyone. The nicer pillows always go a long way.
Yeah, we just need pillowcases that fit them, but sorry.
I mean, that's what Target had at the time, I guess. What are you gonna do?
It was my fault.
They were satin. That's all that counts.
Oh, see, I did something right.
Okay, all right. So how much cornhole did we play, Ken? I mean, I think you were keeping track.
Not enough.
Okay.
We didn't finish our last game. I think we got busy and we had to shift off. I mean, my nemesis over there, Taylor, would probably remember that. Did we get pushed off our last? Yeah, we did. We had to do stuff. We got pulled off our last game, and it was the first time that we played on the same side because usually we were against each other, and she would be throwing bags at me and saying all kinds of expletives that I can't say on here. I mean, she's just crazy competitor over there.
I won every time, so.
Oh, now we're gonna lie live on television. All right.
Well, Brent says bring your B-VoIP cooling towel. I think that was actually your idea. I just made it happen right there, Ken.
Yeah, I got I said water bottles and cooling towels. Oh, wait a minute, water bottles.
Water for everybody.
Water for everybody. Yeah, exactly.
Knew that was coming.
Yep, exactly. I'll tell you though, we went to breakfast, Tay, and he didn't say it. The girl came over and gave an opportunity, and he didn't slap it out of the. I was like, yeah, I think he wants water for everybody.
It's only you two then.
Yeah. So yeah, we did.
Favorite fast food on the trip?
If we have to pick a favorite out of fast food?
Yeah.
Still like In-N-Out. It was good.
Can't go wrong with In-N-Out.
That's not what George was looking for. I'm going to give George his obligatory plug, Chick-fil-A.
Right.
No, In-N-Out's good. I'm down.
No, the Chick-fil-A was just fresh. Like, you know what you get. I know In-N-Out's fresh because they do their own thing there. I've been to In-N-Out enough times, but I think if you're talking about like from a fast food perspective, freshness and the whole package, I'd say Chick-fil-A definitely took that.
Well, we only were able to make it to the one Chipotle stop, so that's my second favorite.
And that was probably that was the most diverse Chick-fil-A. That was the most diverse Chipotle I'd ever been at. I think we all noticed that. It was pretty diverse. They had all kinds of different people working in there, all colors, all shapes, all sizes. I was like, wow, this is a fully diverse group of people. And they were as courteous as the Chick-fil-A people.
Well,
were they not?
I believe that was still Tennessee. So plus one.
It was. You're right. It was Tennessee. Absolutely correct. I was trying to remember that too because it was a super courteous stop. Because I don't think Chipotle has the same level of courteousness as Chick-fil-A from a company wide.
Well, except in Palm Desert.
One lady George will never forget.
No, still upset.
I was pretty shocked when we found that pyramid in Memphis. I didn't know that was there.
Yeah, that was the X Esports, I think it was what it was before, or that's what it turned. I don't even remember. Paul would be able to tell us, but yeah, that was pretty. The same one they have in Vegas. That's the e-gaming place where they go and do the esports.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Well, since we're on it, any landmarks, sightseeing, favorite scenery along the trip?
How about Juarez? The mountain that said Juarez in it and the big orange monument. We could literally probably throw a rock at it from where we're driving on the other side of the border wall. And seeing the border wall being built. That was kind of interesting. You look to the right, you see the border wall. You look to the left, and you see this little El Paso broken up place, right? That was El Paso, right?
It was El Paso, and it was on a Sunday. So who builds wall on Sundays?
Yeah. America, baby. It was that was interesting. I'm trying to think. We saw fires. We saw a plastics fire in Dallas from a hotel room.
I forgot about
that.
We saw a fire. Was that the desert where we saw the fire, like in the brush there, the whole entire? I have a picture of that. We saw an 18-wheeler with everybody's mail-in ballots. Hope you guys not worried about that. We saw an 18-wheeler twisted up and rotated on the highway, which was due to that major rainstorm that hit us, right?
In the middle of the desert.
In the middle of the desert, right? So that was a result of that. Man, what, I mean, we saw a lot. We got the hail coming out of Chicago, pelting the truck like we were being shot at. Yeah, there was quite the amount of things that we could kind of go into and talk about with all the things that happened around us. Taylor's right. Destruction followed us.
That's natural, man. I mean,
Put it.
I mean, I think, Taylor, we were talking for the call. I think you said you really liked the trip between Denver and Phoenix, right?
Yeah, that was my favorite. Well, Albuquerque. We stayed in Albuquerque that night. Albuquerque to Phoenix. That was really pretty. That was by far the best drive.
And so that people in the audience don't get crazy, we went to some of these places, but we were only there for a short time. So if we didn't stop by and see you or say hello, it's because George and I had no clue what it was like planning this trip. We thought we were going to have parties at night, be able to see people. No way. We literally were in and out of places, going through places for 2 hours at a time, literally saying, oh man, I wish we had time to see this one. Atlanta, we had a bunch of stops. We had places in between the Carolinas that we had people ask us to stop. We just couldn't do it. Believe me, the trip was a lot harder than we thought it was going to be based on the truck only being able to go 64 miles per hour and it being a truck. So yeah, I would say anybody that's reaching out and saying, hey, how come you didn't stop by? That's why. Believe me, the last thing we wanted to do was sleep for 4 hours and race out early in the morning to try to get an event done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 64 miles per hour, 7,000 miles. For sure. Not exactly.
I think it was like 14,000 miles.
What was that?
It's like 14,000 miles doing it at 64 when you're in 80-mile zone and we're doing 64. And our driver's trying to protect us from the bumpy part of the road, so he just cuts into the fast lane and has everybody beeping at him.
100%. Brent, I always need a flux capacitor. My DeLorean's outside, man. If you were to do it all over again, what would you change and why?
Oh, Ken, you can answer this first.
Oh, can I?
Yeah, you were in the planning.
I was in the planning. Well, obviously, we didn't know what we didn't know, right? So, we had to do some trips that were longer and harder than we probably thought they would be. So there's that. I mean, what would I change? I wouldn't change. We were very specific and very small with what we were doing to get people there because we didn't want to exceed limits. We didn't want to have too many people there. I think we hit our goals with that, right? We didn't have an overflow of people where we were putting people at risk and doing that giant thing. I think if I were to change something and people watching this, and we said, hey, we're doing another one, ask us where we're going to be. Give us some heads up on your end because we still can't go out inviting to the masses. As much as we want to, as much as we'd like to, we can't do that. And the flip side of that is some people probably didn't know we were coming when we did. So if I could change anything, I'd put it out to people. Just ask us where we're going to be if you guys know us, and then we'll talk about getting you an invite. I mean, when you say that would be probably the closest thing, George, that we could do to help. Oh, I think we lost George.
I'm back. Sorry.
He's back.
A little blip there.
What are you, in my basement? Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah,
George?
Yeah, I'm about to call Comcast now. All right. Well, last takeaway then, right? Is there any one thing that you learned from this trip that you didn't expect, you would give as advice to somebody else, you would tell people it's okay to go out of your house, like, top tip from the trip?
Good take.
I would just say, well, get out of your house, but just like as things are changing, change with the times, change with the way events are going to go. And that's kind of the big thing, I think.
Nice. Well, since we have Taylor as our guest, George, and I'm gonna surround this around Taylor, seriously. So if you're young and you're trying to do something new, jump in with both feet, because Taylor is an extreme example of somebody who could have easily panicked and said no to her bosses when they said, hey, we're gonna put you on a bus for 3 weeks with a bunch of salty veterans from the channel, and what could go wrong? So, I say from that perspective, I learned a lot from Taylor because her ability to adapt and adjust to some crazy people. I mean, we're a crazy group of people, not in a bad way. We're just a crazy group of people. So I would say to anybody that's new and trying to get into this and do this, take some advice from what Taylor did. She jumped in with both feet. She didn't take any crap from anybody. She did her thing, and also turned out to be one of the better people I know. So, and I think George can concur with that. I think that she's a good person. She jumped in with both feet, and my takeaway is I made some new friends on this bus. George and I think, got tighter, but I think that meeting Taylor and some of the other people on the bus was one of my better takeaways.
I'm going to agree. The people. Good point.
All right. Brent says the younger generation are amazing. That's what I found.
Yeah, it's not like what people say. They don't give some of these people credit. They're too busy talking about the mass, which is the same in any group of people, I think. Look at the exceptions. We have a lot of exceptions, a lot of smart exceptions. And by the way, Taylor wasn't the only young person who jumped on this. For 3 weeks he was, but we had other young people. We had Addison from Lion Guard who stepped in and got her feet, in there and learned and gained. So I would say the same thing when we have Addison on here. I think she did the same thing. Jumped in, handled it, and had a blast.
100%. Well, everyone, I really appreciate you hearing us just reminisce about this 3-hour tour. I'm sorry, 3-week tour. Every Tuesdays, we're going to bring somebody else that was on the bus, to share their insights and views and thoughts and, just kind of, reminisce a little bit more so we can see how things are going. Again, MSP Initiative, 1:00, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Eastern time. This whole session was recorded, so you can go back and look at all my funny faces. Brent, yes, 3-hour tour. Gilligan is right. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you here again on Thursday. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.